"Where did you get this picture?" Olivia Bennett whispered, but the 8-year-old boy in front of her only tightened his grip on the black backpack and stared at her with the terrified eyes of a child who had been warned never to answer that question. 10 minutes earlier, Olivia had been standing beneath the bright fluorescent lights of Franklin Heights Elementary, trying to ignore the laughter drifting from the teacher's lounge after someone joked that her red dress made her look like a walking Valentine's Day balloon. At 31, Olivia had learned how to smile through comments about her soft stomach, wide hips, and full figure, but humiliation still burned, especially when it came from people who pretended to be kind. She had returned to her third-grade classroom before anyone could see her cry. That was when she noticed Luca Moretti sitting alone beside the cubbies, his expensive leather backpack open at his feet. Luca was quiet, unusually observant, and guarded in a way no child should have been. He rarely joined games, never talked about his family, and flinched whenever a stranger raised their voice. Olivia had spent 3 months earning his trust through small things, saving him the blue marker he liked, keeping crackers in her desk when he forgot lunch, and never forcing him to speak when silence felt safer. She crouched to help gather the notebooks spilling from his bag, and a worn photograph slid across the polished floor. Olivia froze before her fingers touched it. The woman in the picture had the same gray-green eyes Olivia saw in the mirror every morning, the same crooked smile, and the same tiny scar above her left eyebrow. It was Hannah Bennett, Olivia's older sister, who had vanished 6 years ago without a goodbye, a phone call, or a single trace. The police had eventually called Hannah's case cold, but Olivia had never stopped searching. Now Hannah's photograph was hidden inside the backpack of a boy, whose emergency contact information had been sealed by the school board. Luca snatched the picture, but not before Olivia saw the handwriting on the back. "Protect my son." Her pulse slammed against her ribs. "Luca," she said softly, keeping her voice steady even as the room tilted around her. "The woman in that photograph is my sister." The boy's face lost all color. Before he could respond, the classroom door opened, and Principal Harris entered with 2 men in dark suits. Between them walked Dante Moretti, Luca's father, a 38-year-old mafia boss whose name was spoken quietly in courtrooms, police stations, and private clubs across New York. Dante was wealthy enough to buy entire city blocks, and feared enough that powerful men avoided looking him directly in the eye. His charcoal coat was still wet from the February rain, and a thin scar cut across his right hand as he removed his gloves. He had the controlled stillness of someone who never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. Rumors said Dante had survived 3 assassination attempts, buried friends who betrayed him, and trusted no one outside his family. Yet when he saw Luca trembling, something in his cold expression cracked. "What happened?" he asked. Principal Harris spoke first. "There was an incident involving Miss Bennett and your son's private property." Olivia rose slowly, aware of the tear streak she had failed to wipe away. Harris glanced at her dress and gave a thin, embarrassed smile. "Olivia has been under stress. Perhaps she misunderstood what she saw." The same teachers who had mocked her were now watching through the narrow window beside the door. Olivia felt their judgment like heat against her skin, but she refused to step back. "I did not misunderstand," she said. "Your son has a photograph of my missing sister." The room went silent. Dante's gaze moved from Olivia to the picture clenched in Luca's fist. For the first time, the feared mafia boss looked genuinely shaken. He crossed the room, but instead of demanding the photograph, he knelt in front of his son. "Luca, show me." The boy's lips trembled. "She told me not to." Dante's voice dropped, suddenly gentle. "Who told you?" Luca looked at Olivia, then at his father. "The lady who said Miss Bennett would come for me when it wasn't safe anymore." Olivia could barely breathe. Dante stood, placing himself between her and the people staring through the glass. His broad shoulders blocked their view, protecting her dignity, before he asked another question. Then he turned the photograph over and read the message on the back. His jaw tightened. "This handwriting belongs to a woman who died 3 years ago," he said. Olivia's knees nearly gave way. "My sister isn't dead." Dante looked into her eyes, and behind his suspicion she saw something darker than grief. Fear. "Then someone has been lying to both of us." A second later, Luca reached into his backpack and pulled out a small silver key taped beneath the lining. Dante stared at it as if it could destroy his entire empire. "Where did you find that?" Luca pointed toward the photograph. It was hidden behind her picture. Dante closed his hand around the key, then faced Olivia while Principal Harris quietly backed toward the door. "Miss Bennett, you and my son are leaving with me." Olivia lifted her chin. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what this has to do with Hannah." Dante stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Your sister disappeared the same night someone tried to kill my son, and this key opens a vault that only 3 people knew existed." Then the fire alarm screamed. Smoke rolled beneath the classroom door, and a message appeared on Dante's phone. "Give US the teacher, or the boy doesn't leave the school alive. Stay behind me, and do exactly what I say." Dante's voice cut through the screaming alarm as smoke thickened along the classroom floor. Olivia grabbed Luca's hand, expecting Dante to run for the hallway, but he moved toward the windows instead. Through the glass, she saw teachers and children rushing toward the main exit, where 2 men in maintenance uniforms stood too still among the chaos. Dante noticed them at the same moment. His expression hardened. "The fire is a distraction," he said. Principal Harris reached for the door, but Dante caught his wrist before he touched the handle. "Open it, and you put every child in this room at risk." Harris swallowed and stepped back. Dante pulled out his phone and spoke one sentence. "Lock down the east wing." Less than 5 seconds later, metal security shutters dropped over the hallway doors, and the lights switched to emergency red. Olivia stared at him. Franklin Heights was a public elementary school. No parent should have had that kind of access. Dante saw the question in her eyes but offered no explanation. He removed his wet charcoal coat and placed it around Luca's shoulders, then crouched beside his son. "Can you climb through the reading nook window?" Luca nodded, though his face was pale. Olivia crossed the classroom and pushed aside a shelf of picture books, revealing a narrow window that opened onto the fenced courtyard. She had used it during fire drills, but no one else knew the old latch could be lifted from inside. Dante watched her force it open. "You noticed the men outside," she said. "You knew they weren't staff." "Their boots were dry," he replied. Everyone who entered through the front walked through rain. Before Olivia could answer, a violent hurrah struck the classroom door. Luca flinched. Dante rose, placing himself between them and the sound. "Take him through the window." Olivia shook her head. "The courtyard gate is chained." "Not anymore." A black SUV crashed through the outer lock, stopping beneath the window as 2 of Dante's security men stepped out. He lifted Luca first, then turned to Olivia. She hesitated. "My students are still in this building. The alarm system shows every classroom has been evacuated except this one," Dante said. "I would not ask you to leave children behind." Something in his tone made her believe him. She climbed through, and Dante's hand closed around her waist only long enough to steady her landing. He released her immediately, as though he understood that protection was not permission. They reached the SUV just as the classroom door splintered behind them. One of the fake maintenance workers appeared at the window, but Dante's men blocked his path while the vehicle sped away. Olivia held Luca against her side as the school disappeared behind sheets of cold rain. The boy's breathing came too fast. She guided his hand to her wrist. "Count my pulse," she whispered. "1 beat at a time." Luca focused until his breathing slowed. Across from them, Dante watched in silence. His world was built on fear, commands, and control. Yet Olivia had calmed his son without demanding anything from him. "He has panic attacks," Dante said quietly. Since the night his mother died. Olivia looked down at the photograph still clutched in Luca's hand. Was Hannah his mother? Dante's gaze sharpened. No. Luca's mother was Elena Rossi. She died in a car explosion 3 years ago. Then why did my sister's handwriting say, "Protect my son"? That is what I intend to find out. The SUV entered an underground garage beneath a stone mansion overlooking the Hudson River. Armed guards opened reinforced doors, but Dante ignored them and led Olivia into a private library lined with dark wood and old books. A fire glowed in the marble fireplace, warming the room after the freezing rain. Luca sat beside Olivia on a leather sofa, still wrapped in Dante's coat. Dante placed the silver key on the desk and called in a man named Vincent Caruso, his head of security. Pull every camera recording from the school, Dante ordered. Find out who sent the message and why they knew Miss Bennett was with Luca. Vincent glanced at Olivia with open suspicion. She could have brought them there. Dante's eyes went cold. Use her name. Vincent stiffened. Miss Bennett could have brought them there. She protected my son while you failed to identify 2 armed intruders, Dante said. Question her again without evidence, and you will no longer work for me. Olivia had spent years watching people reduce her to her body, her job, or her grief. No one had ever defended her dignity with such effortless certainty, yet she refused to let gratitude silence her. I still need answers. Dante nodded once. So do I. He opened a locked cabinet and removed a small metal box. Inside was an identical silver key. The vault requires 2 keys turned at the same time. I have carried one since the night Elena died. The other vanished with the man who betrayed me. Luca suddenly slipped from the sofa and approached the desk. There was something else behind the picture. He reached into his pocket and placed a folded strip of paper beside the keys. Olivia recognized Hannah's handwriting immediately. Trust the teacher. She knows where the ledger is, even if she doesn't remember. Olivia stared at the message, confused. I have never seen any ledger. Dante moved closer, his voice calm but intense. Your sister believed you had. Then Vincent's phone rang. He listened for several seconds before turning toward Dante. We traced the message from the school. His face had gone gray. It came from inside this house. Before anyone could move, the library doors locked, the fire died, and a woman's voice came through the hidden speakers. Welcome home, Olivia. Your sister has been waiting 6 years for you to remember. Show yourself, or I tear this house apart room by room. Dante's command filled the dark library, but the woman on the hidden speakers only laughed. Emergency lights flickered on, washing the bookshelves in a dim crimson glow, while Olivia pulled Luca close against her side. The boy was trembling again, yet his eyes remained fixed on the locked doors as though he recognized the voice. Aunt Sophia, he whispered. Dante went completely still. Sophia Moretti was his younger sister, the woman who had helped raise Luca after Elena's death, and the only person in the family allowed to move through the mansion without an escort. Olivia felt the danger shift. This was no stranger breaking into Dante's world. The threat had been living inside it. Sophia was in Rome, Vincent said. Her plane landed this morning, Dante replied, his voice colder than the winter rain outside. You knew? I knew she was returning. I did not know she had betrayed me. A panel behind the fireplace slid open, revealing a narrow passage where Sophia Moretti stood in an ivory suit, elegant and calm, holding a small remote control. She was beautiful in a polished, unforgiving way, but the smile she gave Olivia carried no warmth. You look so much like Hannah, Sophia said, except she knew how to stay quiet. Olivia stepped in front of Luca. Where is my sister? Sophia's gaze moved over Olivia's full figure with deliberate contempt. Still asking brave questions while hiding behind a schoolteacher's salary and cheap shoes. Hannah always said you were stronger than people believed. I never understood why. Before Olivia could answer, Dante crossed the room and stopped between them. He did not touch Sophia, but his presence forced her backward. Use her name with respect. Sophia's smile faltered. You are defending a woman you met less than an hour ago. I am defending the person who protected my son when my own blood put him in danger. The words struck harder than a shout. Sophia pressed the remote, and a screen lowered from the ceiling. Security footage appeared, showing Hannah 6 years earlier entering the same mansion with a bloodied sleeve and a leather ledger held against her chest. Olivia's breath caught. Her sister looked terrified but alive. Beside her walked Elena Rossi, Luca's mother. Hannah was an accountant for one of our shipping companies, Sophia explained. She discovered money disappearing into shell corporations, controlled by a rival family. Elena helped her collect proof. Dante stared at the screen. Why was I never told? Because Elena feared the traitor was someone close to you. Sophia paused. She was right. The footage changed. Vincent appeared in the hallway, speaking with 2 men Olivia did not recognize. Dante turned slowly toward his head of security. Vincent's face hardened, and his hand moved inside his jacket. Dante was faster. He caught Vincent's wrist, twisted the weapon away, and drove him against the desk without firing a shot. Luca buried his face against Olivia's shoulder. She covered his ears while Dante's guards rushed in through the now unlocked doors and restrained Vincent. You sold my family to the Rossano syndicate, Dante said. Vincent laughed through clenched teeth. Your family sold itself long before I did. Then he looked directly at Olivia. Ask her why Hannah hid the ledger in her apartment. Olivia's stomach tightened. I never had it. You did, Sophia said. Hannah visited you the night she disappeared. She placed the ledger somewhere only you would find it, then gave herself up to keep the Rossanos away from you. A memory flashed through Olivia's mind. Hannah arriving after midnight, soaked from rain, carrying a box of childhood keepsakes. She had hugged Olivia too tightly and asked her to promise she would never throw away their mother's old music books. Olivia had assumed it was another strange moment from a sister who was leaving town. By morning, Hannah was gone. The piano bench, Olivia whispered. Our mother's sheet music was inside it. Dante released Vincent into his guard's custody and faced her. Where is the bench now? Shame and panic collided inside her. My landlord put everything in storage after I fell behind on rent. The unit is in Queens. Sophia's calm expression finally broke. Then we have a problem. The storage facility was purchased last month by a Rossano company. Dante took Olivia's hands, his grip firm but controlled. Look at me. Did anyone contact you about the unit? She remembered the calls she had ignored, the final notice taped to her apartment door, and the man who had offered to erase her debt if she signed over the contents. Yesterday, she said. They told me the unit would be auctioned tonight at 9. Dante checked his watch. It was 7:42 p.m. Sophia stepped closer. The ledger can destroy the Rossanos, expose corrupt officials, and prove what happened to Elena. But they will burn the entire facility before they let us reach it. Olivia lifted her chin, refusing to let fear decide for her. Then we get there first. Dante studied her, perhaps expecting hesitation, but found none. You stay beside me. No, Olivia said. You stay beside me. I am the only one who knows what Hannah hid. For the first time, something almost like pride softened his face. Then Luca tugged at Olivia's sleeve and handed her the photograph. A second message had appeared beneath the image, written in ink that had become visible from the heat of the extinguished fireplace. Olivia read it aloud. Do not trust Sophia. Every guard in the library turned toward Dante's sister. Sophia's hand slipped toward the remote, but Dante blocked her path. At that moment, Vincent shouted from the hallway, The auction is a trap. Hannah will be there, and they are going to make Olivia choose which sister walks out alive. If Hannah is alive, I am walking into that trap, and you are not stopping me. Olivia's voice did not shake, even as every armed man in Dante's library waited for his response. Dante stood inches from her, his cold gaze searching her face for fear. But what he found was 6 years of grief, sharpened into courage. "I am not stopping you," he said. "I am making sure you walk back out." Behind them, Sophia remained under guard while Vincent was dragged into the hallway. Luca clung to Olivia's hand until Dante knelt beside him and promised he would return before morning. The boy looked toward Sophia, then whispered something that changed Dante's expression. "Aunt Sophia gave me Hannah's photograph," Luca said. "She told me to keep it hidden from the man with the silver ring." Every eye turned to Vincent's right hand. A heavy silver ring marked with the Rossano crest gleamed beneath the library lights. Vincent tried to pull away from the guards, but Dante removed the ring and placed it beside the 2 vault keys. "Take Luca to the secure wing," he ordered. "No one enters without my voice authorization." Olivia hugged the boy, and he pressed the photograph into her palm. "Bring her home," he whispered. At 8:06 p.m., Dante and Olivia left the mansion in an armored SUV with 2 vehicles behind them. Rain hammered the roof as Manhattan lights faded and the industrial streets of Queens closed around them. Dante sat across from Olivia, studying the old photograph, while she tried to rebuild a memory she had spent years treating as meaningless. "Hannah came to my apartment after midnight," she said. "She brought our mother's piano bench and a box of sheet music. She kept asking whether I remembered the song our mother played when we were afraid. Did you?" "No. After our parents died, I stopped touching the piano." Dante folded the photograph carefully. "Trauma protects secrets by burying them beneath ordinary details." Olivia looked at him. "You sound like you understand that." His jaw tightened. For several seconds, only the rain answered. "The night Elena died, I was supposed to be in the car with her. We argued, and I sent her home alone." His voice remained controlled, but his hand closed into a fist. "I spent 3 years believing my anger killed her." Olivia reached across the narrow space and rested her fingers over his scarred knuckles. Dante looked down at her hand as though tenderness was more dangerous than any weapon. "You did not plant the bomb," she said. "Guilt is not the same as responsibility." Slowly, his fist opened beneath her touch. The convoy reached the storage facility at 8:31. The front gates stood open, and a handwritten sign announced a private auction in Warehouse C. No buyers waited outside. No employees moved behind the office windows. Dante's men found the security system disabled and fresh tire tracks leading toward the rear loading bay. "They want us inside," one guard warned. "Then we do not enter the way they expect," Olivia said. She pointed toward a row of second-floor ventilation windows. "My unit is directly beneath the west stairwell. The building used to be a textile mill. There is an old service corridor behind the units." Dante gave her a brief look of approval. "You remember more than you think." They entered through a side maintenance door, moving through darkness lit only by red exit signs. Dante kept one hand near Olivia's back without pushing her, guiding her around broken glass and exposed pipes. At the end of the corridor, they found Unit 317 already open. Inside stood the dusty piano bench from Olivia's childhood, illuminated by a single hanging bulb. A woman sat beside it with her wrists bound. Olivia stopped breathing. Hannah was thinner, older, and a pale scar crossed her cheek, but the gray-green eyes were unmistakable. "Liv," Hannah whispered. Olivia rushed forward, but Dante caught her around the waist and pulled her back as a red laser moved across the concrete floor. "Pressure trigger," he said. "One more step could ignite the room." Hannah began to cry. "You should not have come." "I searched for you for 6 years, Olivia said. "I will not leave without you." A slow clap echoed from the upper walkway. A man in a tailored navy suit appeared above them, wearing the same Rossano ring Dante had taken from Vincent. Matteo Rossano smiled down at Olivia. "Your sister has always admired your loyalty. That is why she gave up everything to protect you." Dante stepped in front of Olivia, shielding her from the walkway. "Release Hannah. Bring me both vault keys and the ledger. You already searched the bench, Olivia said. You did not find it. Mateo's smile vanished. Neither will you unless your memory returns. Olivia stared at the piano bench, then at the sheet music scattered across the floor. A melody moved through her mind, soft and broken, the song her mother played during thunderstorms. She crossed to an old wall-mounted fire alarm and tapped the rhythm against its metal casing. A hidden latch clicked inside the bench. Dante's men opened a compartment beneath the seat and removed a leather ledger wrapped in oilcloth. But beneath it lay something else, a hospital bracelet bearing Dante Moretti's name and a date from 9 years earlier. Dante stared at it. I was shot that night. A stranger called an ambulance and disappeared before I woke. Hannah looked at Olivia. It was not me. Olivia's buried memory returned in a rush. Rain. Blood on a sidewalk. A wounded man telling her to run. She had pressed her scarf against his chest and stayed until sirens arrived. Dante turned toward her, stunned. You saved my life. Before Olivia could answer, Mateo pressed a switch. The warehouse doors slammed shut. Gasoline began pouring beneath the storage units, and Hannah shouted the truth that froze them all. Dante, Elena is alive, and Sophia has been hiding her from you. Elena is alive. Dante's voice was barely audible, but every man in the warehouse heard the danger beneath it. Gasoline continued spreading across the concrete as Matteo Rossano watched from the upper walkway, smiling like he had already won. Hannah pulled against the restraints, binding her to the chair. Sophia found Elena after the explosion. She was burned and unconscious, and someone inside the Moretti family had already signed her death certificate. Sophia hid her because she believed the traitor would finish the job if anyone learned Elena survived. Dante's eyes hardened. Why did she let me bury an empty coffin? Because Elena could not remember who ordered the attack, Hannah said, until 3 weeks ago. Matteo raised a black remote. A touching reunion, but the gasoline reaches the pilot flame in 4 minutes. Place the ledger and both keys beneath the walkway, or your teacher watches her sister burn. Olivia looked toward the thin red beam crossing the floor in front of Hannah. The pressure trigger was connected to 4 metal plates, but one section of concrete beside the chair remained untouched by gasoline. Dante quietly signaled his guards to spread out. Matteo noticed and pressed a button. Steel shutters dropped over the exits, separating Dante's men from the rear corridor. No more clever moves, Matteo warned. You built your empire by making men fear what you might do. Tonight you will learn what fear feels like. Dante removed the silver key from his pocket and placed it on the floor. You want my empire? Take it. Release them. Olivia turned toward him. He was offering everything without hesitation, but she saw the calculation behind his stillness. Dante Moretti never surrendered. He was buying time. The second key, Matteo demanded. Olivia held it tightly. You are not getting anything until Hannah is away from that chair. Matteo aimed a weapon at her sister. Then she dies first. Olivia's fear rose, but she refused to let it control her. She remembered the old factory layout, the service corridor, and the fire alarm casing that had opened the piano bench. These buildings had been designed before modern sprinklers. Their emergency systems relied on overhead water tanks and mechanical release valves. She glanced at the rusted pipe above Matteo's head, then at the red fire alarm beside the loading door. Dante followed her gaze. He understood immediately. Olivia, Hannah pleaded, do not risk yourself for me again. You disappeared for 6 years to protect me. Olivia said, you do not get to decide. That your life matters less than mine. She stepped toward the gasoline, holding the key where Matteo could see it. Dante caught her wrist gently. You do not have to prove your courage. Olivia met his eyes. I am not proving anything. I am ending this. For one suspended second, the feared mafia boss looked at her not as someone fragile to be rescued, but as the only person he trusted beside him. He released her wrist. Tell me what you need. When I move, hit the alarm. Olivia walked toward the center of the warehouse. Mateo's attention followed her, exactly as she expected. "Put the key down," he ordered. She bent slowly, then threw it beneath Hannah's chair. Mateo cursed and leaned over the railing to see where it landed. Olivia kicked a loose metal cart into the red laser beam. The pressure system activated, but before the igniter could spark, Dante slammed his fist into the fire alarm. A deafening bell erupted. The overhead valves opened, releasing thousands of gallons of water across the warehouse. Gasoline rushed away from the pilot flame, while the sudden pressure knocked Mateo backward against the railing. Dante's guards forced open the service door as Olivia ran through the freezing spray toward Hannah. She dropped to her knees, cutting the ropes with a sharp piece of metal from the broken cart. Mateo recovered and aimed down at them. Dante stepped directly into the line of fire. "Move away from her," he said. Mateo laughed. "Which one? The sister who stole my ledger, or the woman who made you weak?" "She did not make me weak." Dante's voice carried through the alarm. "She reminded me what strength is for." Before Mateo could respond, Hannah pulled the second silver key from beneath the chair and threw it toward Olivia. Olivia caught it, then opened a maintenance panel built into the column beside her. Inside was a manual lever marked Emergency Loading Gate. She pulled with both hands. The steel shutter behind Mateo rose 6 feet, exposing the walkway to Dante's guards outside. Mateo fired once, but Dante moved Olivia and Hannah behind the column as his men surrounded the upper level. No one else fired. Dante wanted Mateo alive. "Drop it," he commanded. Mateo looked at the guards, the flooded floor, and the leather ledger safely inside Dante's coat. Then his arrogance disappeared. He placed the weapon down. By 8:57 p.m., the fire risk was contained. Hannah was free, and Mateo was in custody. Dante stood in the rain outside the warehouse, while paramedics examined Olivia's burned palm, where the silver key had heated against the concrete. He took her injured hand with unexpected tenderness. "You saved my life 9 years ago," he said. "Tonight, you saved my family." Olivia looked toward Hannah, alive beneath a paramedic's blanket. "Then, help me keep her safe." Dante placed his coat around Olivia's shoulders and faced the gathered police, guards, and Rossano witnesses. "From this moment, Olivia Bennett and her sister are under my protection. Anyone who threatens them threatens me." His public choice traveled through the crowd like thunder. Then Sophia called. Dante answered on speaker, expecting an explanation, but a woman's weak voice came through first. "Dante, it is Elena." He closed his eyes as 9 years of control cracked across his face. Elena began to cry. "Luca is not at the mansion. Vincent escaped, and he took our son. Bring my son home, and I will give you the ledger." Dante's voice was calm, but Olivia heard the terror beneath it as the convoy raced back toward Manhattan through the freezing rain. Elena remained on the phone with Sophia, explaining that Vincent had escaped through the mansion's service tunnels and taken Luca to the abandoned St. Gabriel train terminal beside the Hudson River. He wanted the ledger, the 2 silver keys, and safe passage out of New York before midnight. Dante ordered his men to surround the terminal, but Olivia stopped him from sending them inside. "Vincent knows how you think," she said. "If he sees armed men, he will use Luca as a shield." Dante looked at her burned palm, then at the photograph Luca had carried for 3 years. "I cannot lose him." Olivia stepped closer and placed her uninjured hand against his chest. "You will not. But tonight, you have to trust someone else to lead." At 10:14 p.m., Dante, Olivia, and Hannah entered the terminal through the main doors, while the Moretti guards remained hidden outside. Broken chandeliers hung above the deserted platform, and moonlight spilled through shattered windows onto the rusted tracks. Vincent stood beneath the old departure board with one hand on Luca's shoulder. The boy looked frightened but unharmed. "The ledger," Vincent demanded. Dante held up the leather book. "Release my son first." Vincent laughed. You still believe power lets you make the rules. Olivia moved half a step ahead of Dante. No, he believes a father should protect his child. Vincent's eyes narrowed. The teacher who saved everyone. Do you really think he will choose you once Elena returns? The words were meant to wound her, but Olivia no longer lowered her eyes when someone tried to make her feel replaceable. This is not about being chosen over another woman, she said. It is about getting Luca home safely. Luca looked at her, and the fear in his face softened. Olivia continued speaking, reminding him of the breathing exercise from the SUV. Count one beat at a time, Luca. The boy pressed 2 fingers to his wrist. Vincent glanced down, distracted for only a second, but it was enough. Luca stepped hard on Vincent's foot and dropped beneath his arm. Dante crossed the distance before Vincent could recover, pulling his son behind him while Hannah knocked the weapon from Vincent's hand with a loose wooden sign. Dante's guards entered from both sides of the terminal and surrounded the traitor. Vincent reached for a second weapon, but Olivia kicked it across the floor before he could grab it. Dante could have ended the confrontation violently, yet he looked at Luca and chose restraint. Take him alive, he ordered. My son will not remember this night as the moment I became the monster Vincent expected. The guards led Vincent away as Luca threw himself into Dante's arms. For the first time, the feared mafia boss dropped to both knees and held his son without caring who saw him cry. Olivia turned away to give them privacy, but Dante reached for her hand. Stay. Minutes later, Sophia arrived with Elena in a medical transport vehicle. Elena was weak and walked with a cane, but when Luca saw her, he ran across the platform shouting, Mom. Their reunion silenced everyone. Dante stood several feet away, overwhelmed by the wife he had mourned and the life stolen from them. Elena embraced him, then looked toward Olivia. Hannah told me what you did for Luca, she said. Thank you for loving him when you had no reason to. Olivia shook her head. A child should never need a reason to be protected. The ledger exposed the Rossino network, cleared Hannah's name, and provided enough evidence to convict Vincent and the officials who had hidden Elena's survival. Sophia admitted that secrecy had protected Elena at first, but had become a prison built from fear. Dante did not forgive her immediately, yet he allowed her the chance to earn back the family's trust. 3 months later, Hannah moved into an apartment near Olivia and began helping other families search for missing loved ones. Elena focused on healing and rebuilding her relationship with Luca, while she and Dante accepted that what remained between them was family, gratitude, and shared parenthood rather than the marriage they had lost years before. Olivia returned to Franklin Heights Elementary, but no one laughed when Dante Moretti entered her classroom during family reading day. He did not arrive with guards or expensive gifts. He carried a paper bag containing Luca's favorite crackers and a small bouquet of red tulips. In front of the teachers who had once mocked her, Dante took Olivia's hand and said, She never needed to become smaller to deserve respect. The rest of us needed to become better. Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but this time she did not hide them. She had spent years believing love belonged to women who took up less space, asked for less, and carried their pain quietly. Dante loved her because she was courageous, compassionate, intelligent, and strong enough to stand beside him without losing herself. 1 year later, beneath warm lights in the Moretti garden, Luca placed Hannah's restored photograph inside Olivia's bridal bouquet before Dante promised to give her not a perfect life, but an honest one filled with safety, respect, and choice. The missing photograph had uncovered betrayal, reunited a mother with her son, brought 2 sisters home, and led a lonely mafia boss to the woman who had once saved his life without knowing his name. But here is the question. Was fate hiding Olivia's future inside that backpack all along? Or did her courage create the family she had always deserved? Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of danger, healing, and unexpected love.